Welcome back. Caddy Corner, episode 37. I'm Austin.
I'm Caleb.
And welcome back to another awfully gloomy, gross, rainy, wet, cold day.
Yeah, beautiful weather.
In North Carolina. Yep. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yep. We're here to talk about, drum roll please, the creative process.
Boom.
Boom. This will be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited. This is something that Caleb and I partake in every week.
It is.
So,
indeed.
Without further ado, go ahead, pal.
All right. So first up here, let us cover what is the creative process for everyone who is confused on what that might be. What I have written down is the creative process is the way ideas or creative thinking comes about. Basically.
Fair.
And then I have written down that most people believe that the creative process has no structure, which
is crazy.
I believe that is definitely untrue.
Yeah.
While everyone's creative process might be a little bit different, there are these things that I like to call stages.
Yeah.
That I believe that everyone goes through, subconsciously or not, to get to a creative mind of thinking.
I think it's literally just checkpoints.
Yeah.
I think it's literally that simple.
So, without further ado, now
Stages.
that you know what the creative process is, let us cover the stages. Take it away.
All right. My stage number 1 is ideation. Is yours similar to that?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
pretty similar.
So what I kind of talked about for my ideation stage here is it all starts with brainstorming for me.
Mm-hmm.
I like mind maps. That's what I usually go for. But brainstorming is just doing whatever it is that you need to do to come up with a bunch of ideas. The goal is quantity of ideas, not so much quality of ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Step 2 of ideation is filtering those ideas, so getting rid of the garbage, which there will be garbage ideas whenever you brainstorm. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just get rid of the bad ones. Pretty easy to pick those out usually. Sometimes it's a little harder, but get rid of the bad ideas. And then
Hard on the ego.
yeah, well, it sucks sometimes. But sometimes you have ideas that are like, ugh.
Yeah, sometimes.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And then once you do that, come up with the strategies of how to execute those ideas that you come up with. That's pretty much it.
Good
Ideation.
stuff. My stage number 1 is preparation. Basically the exact same thing. I call it the inspiration phase. So definitely brainstorming, writing down all of your ideas, not just some, all of them. Write down every idea that you can think of. And then I also have written down, if you want some more information on inspiration, go listen to our last podcast, episode 36.
Look at that.
We did a whole podcast last week on inspiration. So
Yeah.
go listen to it if you want more information about that. Phase 1.
Well done.
Thanks.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it for your first phase?
Phase
Cool.
1, yeah.
My second stage is the creating part.
Yeah.
The creating section here. So, you can only do one idea at a time, I think. There's some leeway there, but generally, I would pick an idea and do the idea. That's part 1 of the creating thing, is you have to do the thing that you had the idea to do. Then, also, the creating part of the creative process is also very tailored to you, and what that kind of means is it's different for every different kind of medium. Creating is not just making a video or making a podcast like what we do. There's also like people that write books.
Mm-hmm.
There's also people that do paintings.
Yeah.
There's also people that build houses, if you will. But you have to consider the idea that you have in the sense of whatever it is that you're creating. That's very important. For example, if you wanted to do photos of a cool mountain, then you probably wouldn't do that in like a book.
Or at the beach.
Or at the beach. These are good points. So just do the idea basically and do it however your medium calls for. And a medium, for those of you who kind of don't know if that is like something that is not in your terminology, a medium is basically like different forms of media, like books or video or movie or TV or podcast or essay, any kind of thing like that.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So that's one. There you go. But that's my step 2 is the creating step.
Cool. My step 2 is absorbing all of the information. So after you brainstorm, then You look at all of your ideas that you have written down. If it's a mind map, sure. If it's a list of things, sure. Whatever you're into type thing. And then you sit there and you absorb it all. Let it soak in like you're a sponge.
Yeah.
And this stage is kind of tricky, especially for me, because in this stage I feel like I'm not doing anything, which I'm really not.
Right.
Because most of the time this happens subconsciously. I don't soak in the information and then write down the best ideas. That after it's soaked in, I just like let them resonate, let them cook up in there for a little bit, and then go back to them later. So like, no, I'm not doing anything physically, but I am mentally still involved.
Yeah.
So that is my phase 2.
Is your next stage creating, like doing the thing?
No, that is my very last one.
That's your very last one. Okay, cool. My next stage is post-creation.
Oh.
So
do you want me to go ahead and...
Do you want to? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we can do that.
If you want to, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. So my phase number 3 is what I like to call the light bulb phase. So after you let all the ideas sit in your brain for a little while, or sit on a whiteboard or something, if you're looking at it in an office or whatever, and then finally the light bulb clicks, and that's the one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the idea. And so a lot of people think that this is the first phase, the light bulb phase, but it is completely not the first phase. But I also think that many people will do the first 2 stages of these subconsciously.
Yeah.
So like, anytime you're coming up with something, if you're in a creative environment, kind of like we are, then you can just like get lost in space and time and just be thinking about whatever, and then next thing you know, like, there's this idea, boom, like that didn't just pop into your brain randomly. You were thinking about creating something. And so that is how the light bulb phase comes on, bing.
Yeah.
That's how you know that's the one.
Right.
Whenever it clicks.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And then number 4 that I have is the evaluation phase, which is the hard part. That is now you have this really an idea that you think is really good, but then you have to figure out how practical it is, or like how doable it is.
Yeah.
What resources do you have? What kind of loops are you gonna have to jump through to get this idea to actually make it? So this is the part where you have to put your ego aside. No matter how good the idea is or how bad it is, you just have to be able to recognize that, because not all ideas are great ideas. Not all ideas are even good.
True. And not all ideas are doable.
Right.
So that's important too.
So definitely, those are all things that you have to keep in mind. And so I have some questions to ask yourself whenever you get to a spot, the evaluation phase. These are some questions that you can ask yourself. I have 4 of them here. Question number 1 is, has this been done before? If it's been done before, you probably don't want to do it. And so like a second question that you can kind of tie onto that is, how can I do this idea and make it something that hasn't been done before? So like if you want to do something, like you got inspiration from something that has been done before, then think about a way that you can do that to personalize it to yourself, instead of just doing it the exact same way, because nobody wants to see the same thing twice.
Good point. Give us some style.
And then the next question that you have to ask yourself, and probably the most important question that you should ask yourself, is, will I actually enjoy this? Will you enjoy making it? And will people enjoy watching it? This is like a real question that you have to ask. We come up with podcast ideas all the time, and some of them are not fun to record.
Right.
Some of them are not fun to do research on. Some of them are not fun to talk about. Some of them are, but then some of them aren't even fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So like those are the times where we have to stick in the evaluation phase and say, well, will we actually enjoy talking about this, and will people actually want to listen to it? The next question is, why does this matter to me? Because there are a lot of times where you can come up with an idea that is super cool to you, but it doesn't matter to anybody else. So if you can figure out a reason why it matters to you and why you can make it matter to other people, then go for it. But if it just matters to you and you can't make it matter to other people, you probably should put that one on the bench for now. Let it resonate a little longer, maybe.
Sure.
And then the last question that you should ask yourself is, am I challenging myself? So one of the biggest things as a creator is you always want to try and challenge yourself all the time. Anytime that me and you do anything, we're always trying to challenge ourselves, trying to make ourselves better. And if you ask me, you can see that in the podcast every week. I think we do get better every week. And so that's just one thing that we do. And that's one thing that you should do and should focus on often.
Definitely. That's probably the best point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those are some questions to ask yourself if you're in the evaluation phase. But like one thing that you have to remember is not all ideas are great, and not all ideas are even good at all.
True.
So you just have to put the ego aside and just get rid of them ones. And maybe you're not even getting rid of them forever.
Yeah,
like
they can come back.
Yeah, come back to them.
Yeah.
Maybe after you buy more gear and after something is definitely more doable, after you have a space, after you have connections with people, like these ideas can happen, but like maybe not right now.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to put the extra stress on yourself to try and make something that is super great if you don't have the resources to make something that's super great.
I mean, eventually you'll just run into a wall of like you actually can't.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes it's just literally impossible to do something at the time. So.
Yep. So the last phase that I have is the elaboration phase, which is the putting the pen on the paper and actually making something. So, I mean, take it for what it is. Now that you've done all these things, now you finally get to make something, and now that you've been thinking about it for so long, it's probably gonna turn out just fine.
Yeah. True. Bada bing.
Boom.
Picking up right where you left off there, pal. I'm going to pick it up at what I have here, which is the post-creation phase.
Cool. I don't have any of that.
Okay,
so
cool.
Take it away.
This is my favorite stage, I think, in the entire creative process, which is, for us, it would be editing. For people that write books, I don't know what it would be, but it would be something. But this is basically where...
It would be this spell checking.
Yeah, the Grammarly.
Yeah.
You think authors use Grammarly?
My dad uses it.
Turn up.
He's published author.
Published author. There you go. That's it. But this is, to me, the part where the style comes from. This is where your style is kind of defined, at least in the video world.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can only do so much with a camera, but you can do whatever you want in editing.
That is true.
So this is basically though where you get rid of the stuff that you created that isn't good. It's kind of the similar thing to the fourth phase that you said, which was like getting rid of the bad ideas and stuff. This is sort of the same thing, but after you've already made the stuff.
Yeah.
Because in the same way that not all ideas are great, not everything that you created is great. Think about how much footage that we have like on SD cards that we've never used in videos before.
Yeah, just because it's no good.
Yeah, or just because we didn't want to use it. And now, so that's the post-creation phase, though. It's super important. It's my favorite, and it can take the longest for sure.
Yeah.
I imagine it takes the longest in most mediums, but I know that video editing takes its time for sure.
Yeah, definitely
is not something for the weak-minded there. But that's the post-creation phase,
Mm-hmm.
Create your style, and that's kind of the advice I would give for the post-creation phase is, and you said challenge yourself. If you create videos, it's the easiest place to challenge yourself because you don't know how to do everything. Yeah. You just don't. There's no way you do. So just try and do something a little different every time that you do it, even if it's just like a little different way of cutting it or something like that. You can make just a lot of kind of compounding improvements, like what you said with just challenging yourself and stuff like that. And the post-creation phase, I think, is the best place to do that. So that is the post-creation phase. And then the final kind of phase is the release phase, which is where you share what you made to the world or like one person, if that's what you're more into. This is where the feedback comes from sometimes, depending on how you kind of do it. Whenever I thought about this, like the release phase, I thought about like showing videos in the studio in high school, and that's where everybody like rips you and tells you what you did wrong. Yeah, which is like great.
It is
because it makes you better for the next time. And something else that I wrote is that the release phase will always be a little bit nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah.
Every time that I press upload on the podcast, I'm a little bit like,
yeah,
we'll see how this goes. Yeah, every time. And we've done almost 40 of these things.
Yeah,
like you know what I mean. But it's important to just kind of think about that and don't let, number one, like you're nervous for nothing. Who cares? In our case, it's like, let's show this 6-minute video and get our feedback. And the thing to kind of keep in mind is you always have another chance.
Yeah.
You can always do it again. You can always take the same idea that you did before and redo it.
Yeah, do it better.
Exactly. So just in the release phase, taking feedback is important. The podcast is easy. We look at the numbers and see what did well and what didn't do well, and we try and figure out why and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with videos. It's the same way. So that's the release phase. That's pretty much all that I have. But the last kind of thing that I want to talk about in the stages part of it is I want to talk about collaboration.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the most important thing in the creative process ever. So what I have written for collaboration is it's getting a fresh set of eyes on old problems. So old problems basically just meaning things that are kind of giving you a hard time in your creative process, things you're trying to figure out. Getting a new set of eyeballs on that almost always fixes it like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll sit there and hyperfixate and spin your tires forever on like a problem. And if you just get a new set of eyes on there, it gets straightened out real quick.
Yeah.
So that's super important. And it also can fit into any phase ever. On my list, on your list, it never hurts to have another person. Sometimes it can hurt, I guess, but most of the time it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, most of the time it does
especially somebody that knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, we do this, which is all of it is collaborative just because you and I work together on it. My probably favorite place to have collaboration is in the ideation phase, like brainstorming and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's different. So just if you're doing anything in the creative process, I recommend collaboration so much. It'll make your life so much easier.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So is that all you have?
That's all I have.
All right. Well, I have just 2 takeaways from this whole episode, kind of.
I've got some points as well.
So basically, one thing that I want to say is now that the listeners understand the creative process, hopefully now you recognize that it doesn't just happen randomly.
Yeah.
It doesn't just pop up whenever. It takes time. It's a process, and it takes work, especially to make it the grand idea that you came up with in your head. These are not easy things to do. They never have been. They never will be.
True.
And so you have to recognize that, and you have to be willing to put the time and the effort into it to be able to make something that you will enjoy to make and that people will enjoy to watch. Because at the end of the day, as a creator, that is your goal. Your goal is to make something that you enjoy making, that other people enjoy looking at or watching, whatever it is. And so that is one of the biggest takeaways, I think. And another thing is that the creative process is not easy on your mental side either. It's very frustrating sometimes. And so just remember to take things one step at a time. The cool thing about the creative process is it's not written in stone, so you can jump around from phase to phase. If you get too far ahead of yourself, like take a couple steps back and be like, I'm going to go back here and rework some things on the drawing board or editing wise, or go back and refilm some things, whatever it is. If you're sculpting, maybe you chop the nose off and re-sculpt it, you know.
Whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do. So if you get frustrated, you can take things one step at a time, but you can also jump around from phase to phase, because this is just your story, basically. Everything that you make is just your story that you're trying to tell. So tell it however you want to.
Bada bing. I have a couple of points as well, and then we can wrap this bad boy up. But you kind of touched on it a bit, but the whole process is entirely up to you. In the order that you go about it is up to you. Also, how you do the phases is up to you. I talked a little bit about how I use mind mapping for my brainstorming in the ideation phase. Maybe what works best for you is something totally different.
Yeah.
But it's all customizable, and it's all very important that you do customize your creative process to be, number one, what is most efficient for you as a person, but also what is most important for whatever you're trying to create. You and I are not good at giving advice to people who write books because we've never written a book.
That's true.
Right? But we can give advice on how to make a video. We've done that plenty of times.
Yeah.
So it's just important to keep that in mind whenever you are creating your creative process. Also, I think it's important to leave room for failure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I have 5 steps. you're going to mess up on every single step.
Yeah, definitely.
Every single time you make something. Because every time that you make something, it's a different set of problems. So leave room for failure. I also think holding yourself to deadlines is important.
Definitely.
Just so that way you'll get the thing done. But definitely leave room for failure. Because those failures you can learn from so easily. Because typically, and especially, it's not going to be something that's like catastrophically awful that happens most of the time.
Yeah.
So just leave room for little failures and then just get better from them. And then the last kind of takeaway and the point that I want to make here is that you can learn from others, which is exactly what you're doing if you're listening to this podcast. You're learning from us about the creative process. But YouTube exists. There's so many human beings on there who are open about their kind of creative process. Every single person that makes YouTube videos has a creative process because they're posting YouTube videos. If you're interested in it, just learn from others. And just by watching other people make content, you learn through osmosis.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my last point. Just don't take for granted how much this happens in your everyday life, even if you're not somebody who actively creates things.
Yeah.
Because it literally happens every single day for every single person ever.
Mm-hmm.
So the creative process.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
I think that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, that's all I have too.
Cool. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
Caddy Corner, episode 37, right? Is that what I said in the beginning?
37.
37. Thanks so much for listening, watching. Like and subscribe, comment, ring the bell. Do all that other stuff that you do on YouTube. If you're on the audio platforms, make sure to rate and review. We read all of our reviews on the beginning of the podcast every time. We don't have a new one this week, unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
So, but rate us 5 stars, leave us a review. We really appreciate it. We do this show every Friday, which is kind of more informational. There's no way that is a word.
Informative.
Informative is what I meant to say, but it's a more informative kind of this vibe show. You're watching it already, you know the deal. We also do an audio-only show every single Wednesday. It's called Caddy Corner After Hours. It's basically just me and Caleb hanging out for 30 minutes after the podcast, talking about whatever we want to talk about. So if you're into that sort of thing, every Wednesday on audio, the link's in the description. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the podcast platform, literally just scroll down one box and it'll be there because it came out 2 days ago. With that being said, I'm Austin. He's Caleb. We'll see you next week. Peace.